mean to tell me the defensive architect that created the play that was the scoop and score fumble recovery from Jack Sawyer can't be invited to his own damn championship parade? Whew, that is one sort of slap in the face. Welcome in. This is Bando's Breakdowns, episode 35. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you again for tuning in on this fine Wednesday afternoon. It's great to be back with you guys. It's getting a little bit warmer in certain parts of the country, including in and around the Chicago suburbs. So I hope you're enjoying the nice weather while you can, after we had that bit of a cold surge a couple weeks ago. But now we're back kind of in the regular winter phase, if you will. But before we get into the show this week, I just wanted to let you guys know and say thank you for all of your support. It's been very, very much appreciated from people old and new that have reached out to me via DM or personally to let me know that they've listened into the show or watched the show. And for those of you who are, or those people, again, thank you very much. And be sure to keep paying it forward. It's very, very much appreciated. And to do exactly that, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench podcast network. We just surpassed a little over 900 subscribers, so it would be greatly appreciated if you supported the show and all of its different types of content. You can do so at youtube.com/ATP network. Everything from this show to Forever Power 5, which just wrapped up its college football coverage. So thank you to those who tuned into that show, the first season of that show. We're very, very excited to see what that show could become. We have a lot more exciting little mini segments on the way that we're not entirely ready to reveal yet, but we're excited to see what those can become as extensions of that show. You can also find the MMA Outsiders with myself and Pat Dana. You just did a new episode of that come out last night. A very, very engaging episode. That was episode 112. Talked about a lot there. You also have ETB Sports with Nick Morganson and Anthony Ballister. That just came out fairly recently as well. And so it's more. So be sure to tune into all of the content across all of the different platforms, including wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Bando's Breakdowns on the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, anywhere you get your podcasts, it should be there as well. And of course, as you all know, my name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and ETB Network co-host, most notably known for hosting this solo show every single week, as well as the MMA Outsiders. And I'm also an infrequent contributor to Forever Power 5, as I mainly stay behind the scenes for that show from a production standpoint. And you could also check me out across various different mediums in the sports media world. My work is hosted on the Sporting News, Field Level Media, and MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated. Currently, you can also find me on various different syndication platforms, including Deadspin, Reuters, and so much more. So if you want the latest news in college football, college basketball, or combat sports, there's a good chance every single day you will find one of those three things from me on a weekly basis, and again, sometimes a daily basis as well. So be sure to check me out everywhere. And you can also follow the show, Bando's Breakdown, here across social media at Bando's Breakdown. You can follow me, Zain Bando, at ZanBando99 on all social media platforms. My DMs are open on Instagram and X. I do my very best to respond to all of them. I apologize if yet to get to you, and I will do all I can to make sure that I do get to you. But just as a reminder, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out directly if you just have any questions, concerns, or feedback. And speaking of feedback and speaking of extensions and so much more, Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. Playback has been a wonderful sponsor to us across about the last year and a half or so. They've really dove into a lot of different content, whether it's the NBA, college football, so much more. It's been really, really nice to follow them and their journey. And speaking of Playback, here we go. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETV network to find out more, including our live stream schedule, which I'm sure is going to get busier with time as the NBA postseason draws closer. But for now, we are going to get into the show itself. We have a very, very packed show to get through today in a short amount of time. So we're going to start with Zain's overview to go over what we're going to be discussing today. So we have a lot to get to. We're going to be talking about some major college football coaching news later on in the show. In Zain Zinger, we're going to be talking about the new coaching hires that the Bears just acquired late last week to sort of begin the roundout of the brand new coaching staff under Ben Johnson. We're also going to be talking about who is in the Super Bowl, who won the NFC and AFC championships. If you guys have not already heard by now, who will be playing in New Orleans to hoist the Lombardi Trophy for Super Bowl 59. I'll give my early look on that. We'll talk about UFC Saudi Arabia and so much more. But before we get into it, we have a bit of a somber note now. I wanted to get into this. It is the fifth. It is the fifth year, if you will, since we lost the late great Kobe Bryant. It's very, very sad to say. I'll never forget where I was when he unfortunately passed away. But as someone who is an outsider, as someone who considers himself a Bulls fan and technically a fan of a rival of Kobe Bryant's, I just want to say his game is highly respected. I think he's a top 5 NBA player of all time for sure. When you look at the all time greats and when you look at what he was able to do for the league and just overall, it's unreal that we continue to honor his legacy for someone who lost his life extremely young. And again, as someone who is a Bulls fan and who was on the other side of a lot of these Laker rivalries, if you will, with some of these other teams. I can only imagine every single year what Kobe Bryant fans feel around this particular point in time. So I just wanted to get that out of the way really quick and just simply say again, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. May his legacy live on forever. All right, now we're going to move away from that. We're going to get into the NFL now. We have the Super Bowl. It is official, the rematch, Kansas City versus Philadelphia. Should be a good game. I know that there are a lot of people who are frustrated about this, who are a lot of people um, who didn't want to see this matchup. Full disclosure, I was in Arizona 2 years ago for Super Bowl Media Week in Glendale to cover the Super Bowl. I was not at the game. Um, that's a that's a that's a story for another time about how I may or may not have attempted to go to the game anyway. But that is again it is again off limits for now. What I will say is I'm familiar with these two teams. I remember when these two teams played. It was a great Super Bowl. Kansas City won heroically, obviously. From what I remember, the Chiefs barely covered the spread in this game. Uh, I mean, overall, just the pageantry of it. Kansas City going for their third Super Bowl. Philadelphia didn't have a great end to its 2023 season. Comes back in 2024 with a vengeance. Wins the NFC East and essentially dominates 2 out of their 3 postseason opponents. One of them being Green Bay, obviously, in the wild card round. Excuse me. And then the other one, of course, being last Sunday when they knocked off the Commanders. The Chiefs, meanwhile, to me, are one of I'm not going to say one of the worst teams to get past the AFC Championship, but they definitely weren't a traditional Kansas City Chiefs team. They weren't one of these teams where, people were essentially going in there thinking that they were afraid of the Chiefs. I mean, there were a lot of close games with this Chiefs team this past year. With their low, excuse me, with their with one of their few losses. In fact, Hang on. In fact, on their way to the AFC West division title, they only lost 2 games all year, and one of them, of course, was to the Buffalo Bills, who they knocked off in the AFC Championship game. So, I guess now that we're on the Chiefs, let's just get into the game here. This was an exciting game. Chiefs and the Bills, obviously AFC Championship game in Kansas City. Again, Kansas City with home field advantage. Super thrilling ending, super controversial. Was Josh Allen short on that fourth down? Was he not? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm just going to say this. I understand people have been coming out and making accusations towards the NFL, towards the officiating crew, all that stuff. I totally understand where people are coming from with that. But I will say this. If you were the Buffalo Bills and you were Josh Allen and you've been in this position, I don't know, 3 to 4 times in the past where you're playing a Kansas City team that you think you should beat, or you give too much time, or you do whatever with it, don't put yourself in a position to lose the damn game. It's as simple as that. Go be aggressive. There's what, 4 minutes to go and you're down less than a touchdown. And what do you and what do you decide to do? You decide to go conservative. You're running flat passes to Dalton Kincaid. You're running quarterback sneaks to Josh Allen. You have Kincaid drop probably what would have been one of the signature catches of his career that would have changed the entire game. You give up you give up all the momentum. You have the lead at one point. Like I mean, I don't know, man. I understand. I understand the refs are a major story from this game. I get it. They're always going to be a major story when it comes to this Kansas City Chiefs team. But you cannot tell me that the Buffalo Bills had replayed this scenario over and over and over again, numerous times in their heads, thinking that, okay, if we're in this position again and we give Mahomes too much time again, we're gonna go lose. And what happened? Kansas City took a late lead. They gave the Bills the ball back with plenty of time. Then, of course, on that fourth down, suspiciously enough, should there have been a flag? Shouldn't there have been a flag? I thought there was going to be a flag. I thought there was contact on that play, but I mean, my goodness, man. I mean, I get it. I understand referees make mistakes. I understand they make blunders, but to clearly not get a first down on that 4th and 1 when he was clearly over the marker from every single angle, even Jim Nantz and Tony Romo admitted that he was over the marker, and they still got the call wrong. So my point in saying this is you can blame the refs all you want, but at the same time, the Bills had numerous opportunities to ensure that the refs wouldn't be needed at the end of the game. And what happened? The refs were needed at the end of the game, and it favored Kansas City. I mean, sometimes that just happens in sports. Sometimes the call doesn't go your way. And again, I understand egregious mistakes can happen. But if you are the Bills and you've been in that position a zillion times in the past, and you're letting history repeat itself again, what else do you expect? So that's my overall point there. Kansas City moves on to the Super Bowl. They're looking to three-peat. Let's go over to the NFC Championship now. Eagles and the Commanders. Super unexpected playoff run by Washington. Obviously beating Tampa Bay in the wild card round, knocking out the number 1 seed Detroit Lions, who had a bye week, won the NFC North, beat them in their own stadium, and then goes to Philadelphia, who's quietly been, in my opinion, the most underrated team in the postseason. And I understand you're going to say, Sam, what about Washington? I don't think Philadelphia has been given the respect they deserve. Jalen Hurts was not 100% healthy going into the postseason. People thought, oh, if Jalen Hurts doesn't play against the Packers might have a shot. Well, what the heck happened? Jalen Hurts played. Jalen Hurts looked respectable, and the Eagles beat the Packers, right? Then the next week, it was like, oh, you got the Rams coming in. They just dominated Minnesota. Everybody, and you thought that Minnesota might be a playoff dark horse, even as a wild card team, considering that it nearly won the NFC North. What happened? The Rams went in there and smoked them. The Rams go into Philly. They give the Eagles a good game in a snowbank game, and the Eagles win that game. I feel like personally, I feel like personally looking back, the Commanders were better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number one and number two, I think Detroit was just too overconfident. I think the pressure was simply too big for Detroit to handle, and that's one of the reasons why they lost. If you would have put the Eagles, excuse me, if you would have put the Lions against the Commanders 100 times, I'm going to guess that 70 of those games go in favor of Detroit. It just happened to be that one game, Detroit didn't play well defensively, had too many missed assignments, had too many whatever, and let Jaden Daniels cook them. That's exactly what happened. And obviously, the Eagles knew how to exploit Daniels. They dominated him, put up 55 points. The game was essentially over at halftime. When it was 27-12, I figured the game was probably got to reach. So congratulations to the Eagles there. They get the job done. They go to the Super Bowl. It's their second Super Bowl appearance in 3 years. Haven't won since the 2017-18 saga there when they beat New England to exact revenge from 13 years earlier. So the Eagles will have a chance to do just that. Going back to the preview here, my early pick, Kansas City 24, Philadelphia 20. I think Mahomes edges out Hurts. I think it's a great game. I think it's a high scoring game. I think it's a back and forth game. I'm going to guess if I were to put an over under, I'm going to go under 6 punts in the Super Bowl. There's not going to be very many punts. There's going to be a lot of scoring drives in this game, a super close game, but I like Kansas City to become a three-peat NFL champion. And again, I understand tons of people don't like Kansas City. I understand they're America's team to hate, but to me, you got to respect greatness. Patrick Mahomes is on his way to an already legendary career as a top 5 NFL quarterback all time if he isn't already. And this just puts another stamp on an already laundry list legacy that Mahomes has. And I think that that's something that people need to understand and respect. So just something to keep in mind there. But I like the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl by 24-20. And of course, if the line moves, which obviously will closer to the Super Bowl, my score prediction may change slightly. But with it over a week to go until the game, I love Kansas City in this spot. So give me the Chiefs to win their third straight Super Bowl title. Let's get into Zan Zinger. I got one for you guys today, and the Zinger is an obvious one. For those of you who have followed my work over the last few days, you know that Jim Knowles is now the new defensive coordinator at Penn State, bolted out of Ohio State, bolted out of Columbus, Ohio, right after Ohio State won the national championship. And there's a very, 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 very stipulating reason as to why Jim Knowles is no longer employed by Ohio State. And there's a reason for that. There are now reports coming out suggesting that the Jim Knowles had a sour ending to his time in Columbus. And not only did he have a sour ending, but Action Network's Brett McMurphy did some digging and he found out through his internal sources that Ohio State told Jim Knowles, who led probably the best defense in college football, the number one total defense in the country, the number one scoring defense, if you will, to the national freaking championship. And they told him, and not just the national championship, but winning the national championship against a very good Notre Dame team, 34-23. They told him, you know what, Jim? We appreciate your services. We appreciate all you have done for world famous The Ohio State University, but we cannot meet your demands and we don't want you to attend the championship parade. You mean to tell me the defensive architect that created the play that was the scoop and score fumble recovery from Jack Sawyer can't be invited to his own damn championship parade? Whew, that is that is one sort of slap in the face if I've ever seen one. Let's get into what Jim Knowles brings to Penn State as he goes home to Pennsylvania. It is a 3-year deal for Jim Knowles. It's a huge deal in the Big Ten to go from one Big Ten rival to another. like this. So let's dig into the press release that was put out on Monday morning officially after it was widely reported on Sunday that Jim Knowles would be leaving for State College. And keep in mind, Penn State was the Big Ten runner-up, lost to Oregon in the championship game, and then, of course, lost the Orange Bowl to Notre Dame in a heartbreaking fashion, thanks to the leg of Mitch Jeter, who kicked the game-winning field goal to send Notre Dame to its first national championship appearance in a decade. So you want to talk about a sour ending for Mr. Knowles, not making it to the national championship game. There is, so you want to talk about a sour ending for Jim Knowles' new team not making it to the national championship game. There is that as well. So let's take a look at the official press release. Seemed like James Franklin was super excited in discussing this news. This is arguably um the biggest piece of Big Ten coaching news, at least this offseason. So this is what Knowles said in a statement to the media, a statement that I also got as well. I am excited for this opportunity to join Penn State football. I would like to thank Coach Franklin, Pat Kraft, and President Neil Bendapudi for this opportunity to be the defensive coordinator at Penn State. I have always had a ton of respect for Coach Franklin and the program he has built here. I look forward to working with this tremendous staff and group of student athletes, and I am ready to get to work. Okay. He has been coaching in college football for 37 years, 17 of those as a defensive coordinator. That's damn good. His previous stops, obviously, most notably Ohio State, as I just alluded to, and of course, was with Oklahoma State for a little bit as well. That was 2018 to 2021. Then, of course, was at Duke for 6 years, 2011 to 2017, and before that, a stint at Western Michigan. So this guy is a unbelievable coach. Just a quick correction: Knowles' defense was ranked third in the country, first in pass defense, and 18th against the run. So pretty damn close to being the best defense in the country. Not quite there, but did quite enough to turn this defense into a juggernaut. So overall, it's a tremendous hire for Knowles. It's good news for Penn State. Knowles bolts out of there, gets millions and millions of dollars to coach that unit up, a unit that was a relatively solid unit last year. Had some really nice pieces, including Abdul Carter, who's off to the NFL. But I just want to say, I think Penn State hit a home run here. I really do. You mean to tell me that Jim Knowles had a dust up ending, if you will, to his tenure at Ohio State, and now he has a chance to go stick it to his old employer next November in Columbus? You can't write a better storyline than that. You just can't. So overall, I'm happy for Knowles. I'm sure that Ohio State is kind of reeling with their decision. They still have to find a defensive coordinator. At the time of this recording, a defensive coordinator has not been announced in Columbus, but I'm sure that will come with time as well. So that is my zinger for this week. And I just wanted to briefly get into this as well. We had an interesting nugget with Bret Bielema at his most recent media availability on Sunday, kind of discussing the state of the program. And he talked about how much recruiting has really shifted ever since Illinois won the Citrus Bowl. And of course, he brought up the story about how Caden Fagan, who's a star running back at Illinois, suffered an injury mid-season last year, so we didn't quite get a chance to see what he really could become this early in his career. But he talked about how, the Illinois basketball program just has parallels all over it, and how, there are guys on other teams that can really influence decisions. And one of them was that Kofi Coburn told Fagan a couple years ago that he needed to come to Illinois. He didn't say what that message was or how it persuaded him, but he did remind everyone that, hey, if you have one good sports team at the same school, there's a good chance that it could rub off on another. And to see what Bret Bielema has done already, now 6 commitments in the class of 2026, and some pretty solid players to go along with it. Most recently signing James Alexander out of Lincoln Way East High School, a pretty solid edge rusher. You got a nice quarterback in Michael Clayton. You have some guys on the offensive line, and you're obviously going to be adding more pieces. He's added some pieces from the transfer portal as well. But it is clear that Bret Bielema is serious about building a program that's sustainable, hard-nosed, tough football players, guys that aren't going to take any bull crap, and guys that are just going to play to win. And that's exactly what Bret Bielema came to Illinois to do. And you have to give him all the respect in the world. Literally building this program from scratch, building it from the mess that Lovie Smith left. And I think he's done a pretty damn good job at doing exactly that. So shout out to Bret Bielema, shout out to the Illinois football program. What they've been able to do overall and just sustained winning success is unbelievable. And I will be the first to admit that I genuinely enjoy covering this program because it's clear that he has the vision and the means to build something that's going to always contend for high profile bowl games, eventually Big Ten championships, and so much more. So this was very, very, very cool to see. And I'm happy to see that Bielema is really taking this thing seriously and moving it into the next level, moving it into where, you can start to have the conversation that Illinois, you know, is eventually going to be of the same caliber, in the Big Ten and can compete with the likes of Oregon and can compete with the likes of Penn State and can compete with the likes of Ohio State and can compete with the likes of Michigan. Hell, Illinois' Alexander commitment, they beat out Michigan. They beat out Michigan. They beat out Nebraska. They beat out Michigan State. Those are huge name brand schools. And Alexander decided to stay home. That's a huge deal. So overall, very, very exciting stuff. Excited to continue to follow this 2026 recruiting class because to me, they have a chance to be really, really special and continue to build the blueprint that is this brand new era of Illinois football under Bret Bielema. And I think it's really exciting to see. And I think he's one of the most entertaining coaches in the entire country, just in terms of personality standpoints. That is really good as well. Let's briefly get into this Bears news now. The Bears made some decisions. We got Dennis Allen, and then of course, obviously the Bears' new offensive coordinator, of course, is a relatively young guy, Declan Doyle. Is his name? A lot of people are trying to figure out who Declan Doyle is. No one seems to really know who he is, from a hardcore standpoint. But he is 28 years old. Um, and he's known as now the youngest active offensive coordinator in the NFL. Only has about a couple of years of experience, not even a decade of experience in football. He started as a student assistant in Iowa. Then he went over to the New Orleans Saints as an offensive assistant for a couple of seasons. That was 2019 to 2022. Then, of course, he went over to Denver and was the tight ends coach for a season. So, again, a very, very interesting, step up for the Bears to trust a guy whose track record is not what you would expect from a seasoned offensive coordinator. I guess it just goes to show you. Um, I guess. I guess. I guess just kind of moving forward and just doing that. Um, I mean, definitely puts the Bears at a level to where they'll have to prove themselves, and that's going to be very interesting. Obviously, Dennis Allen has been in the NFL a long time, has had several stops. Of course, New Orleans Saints, Raiders, et cetera, et cetera. It should be interesting. I just want to see what schemes they're going to bring in. I want to know, what their draft perspective could look like. Could they go after Ashton Genty? Could they go after somebody else at number 10? Again, all this stuff is in motion. All of this stuff is really interesting. And of course, this will be a story to follow. But I'm excited to see what the Bears do moving forward. Hopefully, and again, as this Bleacher Nation article cites within the first paragraph, I'm very curious to see how a first-time head coach handles a rookie coordinator. Absolutely, because it's the fear of the unknown. It's Caleb Williams' second year. How is he going to adjust to a guy that's still very new? That means they can learn and grow together. And maybe the Declan Doyle Caleb Williams combination becomes legendary. You just never know. So just something to keep in mind there as well. All right, let's get into UFC Saudi Arabia, just really quick before we get out of here. Again, my UFC record going into this weekend, 15-12 overall, off to a decent start. Went above 500 on UFC 311 and just was at 500 for the first UFC Vegas event of the year. Main event is Israel Adesanya, Nasruddin Imavov. I went over this fight on the MMA Outsiders, but I'm just going to say it again. This is a must-win fight for Israel Adesanya. You cannot go into this fight anticipating the worst, because if you do, he's not on the chopping block to get cut from the UFC, but he would certainly turn into a guy that would just be a fan favorite guy, a guy that would just be there for the sure name value of the division, if you will. And that's, I think, something that people need to understand, is that Adesanya earlier in his career, his goal was to beat everybody they put in front of him. It's as simple. It's as simple as that. And now he has done anything but ensure that that's a possibility. Losing to Sean Strickland, not performing the best against Dricus du Plessis, but maybe winning a few rounds. This is a must-win fight for Adesanya. For Imavov, it's the biggest name he's fought in his career so far. Can he handle the pressure? That'll be the major question. I like Adesanya by finish to get back on track, but we shall see what transpires of this event. It should be a good event. Early start time Saturday morning in the United States from Saudi Arabia. Arguably the biggest fight night that's confirmed of the year to date, and should be exciting to see. It's on the eve, though, because a week later it'll be UFC 312, Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. Looking at his hands, look ahead, it's exactly that. We'll preview UFC 312 next week. We will preview the Super Bowl, and we will preview all the other major news that breaks in the world of sports, as well as a new edition of Bando's Blitz, which will come out Saturday morning. No errors this week, which means we are done. And so that is going to do it. That is episode 35. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you again for tuning into another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. This was a very, very fun show. Short and sweet as always. And just as a quick reminder before I get out of here, again, Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. And of course, listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. For myself, Zain Bando, and for everybody else, the Empty the Bench podcast number, this has been episode 35 of Bando's Breakdowns. And again, my name is Zain Bando. I hope to see you guys soon. More specifically, of course, next week. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you. Hey, everyone, it's me again. Apparently, there's been a bit of a plot twist, as there sometimes is on the show, because we have a bit of at least small breaking news. This time, it's coming out of the boxing community, and of course, to make headlines, to do whatever, Logan Paul and Jake Paul have allegedly agreed to a fight on HBO Max in March. Apparently, this is happening. Logan Paul tweeted this probably within the last hour since I sat down to record and just missed it. So I'm going to give my quick reaction to this. I don't believe it. I don't see how this fight happens. I don't understand how it makes sense. Is this boxing? Is this MMA? I assume it would be boxing, considering that neither have competed in MMA. But still, I don't see how this is even remotely possible. I don't want to see it. I don't care about it. This seems like a fad. But then again, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul happened, and we were all wrong. So who knows? This could be a huge moneymaker for HBO. But it is officially going to do it for the show. Hopefully I didn't catch you guys too off guard, and I hope to see you guys next week. Have a good one.